Tut, 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 and tut again, I say. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. Hello, Phil. Hello, Matt. Exactly. Pedal faster. I'm going to have a strong word with Mark when we finished here, and I won't tell you why, but what he told us, we were amazed. Now, what else is it they say? You would be amazed. Something like that, isn't it? The image was clickbait. Looking forward to this. Well, yes. In the week in which, in fact, it's what we were just talking about before we went live, in the week where an airliner managed to drop, who knows the technical name for the big bit of the front of the engine, the big ring of the front of the engine into someone's garden, and another one put some fan blades through the roof of a car and actually injured two people, 2 incidents in a week. The Aluda air, we haven't spoken this before we started. The Aluda airspeed thing has got me so angry that I sat down on Sunday to write something about it, and I couldn't. There's just so many points of failure in that thing that I can't. So I can't string words together even now about it. So I thought I'd let this lot do it. So, gentlemen, where shall we start with that airspeeder? Shall I bring up who wants to pick that ball up and run with it?
I think they did a very good job. It was built to a very high spec. I think CAA sabotaged it.
Oh, there we are then. There we are. Bruce says it right.
Do you know what was more concerning for me in this? Did no one stick their head in the guts of this before allowing it to take off with people? Was there no,
it wasn't.
Didn't I read that they weren't allowed access to it? CAA were on site at the day of the demo, but they weren't allowed access to the craft.
So why was it allowed to fly? Let's be blunt here. This is a regulator. We're not talking about an M600. We all know an M600 could do a lot of damage. It's a big enough aircraft. We're talking something substantially bigger here.
But it wasn't a hobby craft, so it must be safe. It wasn't a hobby craft. It was a company. It was a professional.
It's a commercial enterprise.
Yeah, commercial. So it must be safe.
But let's just rewind the clock. Before it even gets to the regulator, it gets on an aeroplane from Australasia and flies all the way to the UK. So when they boxed it up in Australia, they thought they had top notch, ready to go. Here, Izzy Wizzy, let's get busy design, absolutely perfect. Surely that's where the drama starts before it even gets to the UK.
It makes you wonder whoever signed off that aircraft, whoever signed it out of Australia to say that's safe to fly, that person should be.
But Mark, I don't care about Australia. With it, ignore Australia a second. That must have had an OSC in the UK. Yeah,
it is.
It's the only way that can fly is under an OSC. So who signed that off? That's the person I want. I don't care about Australia.
That's true.
We're talking CAA. We don't want to witch hunt. We just want to learn and move on.
So what's interesting is when you write for the OSC and you do your volume 2, okay, you'll list the specs of the aircraft, but you don't necessarily give them an entire wiring diagram, or you don't necessarily give them photos of everything. Although UAV, I think it's UAV Shop in the UK who do the Vulcans, they actually do birth certificates for each aircraft. So they take photos of all soldering as they assemble the aircraft, as it gets assembled, because if anyone touches it, they can go into the birth certificate and go, no, that's, whoever let that fly in the UK should have took one look at that wiring and gone, this aircraft is not to fly.
Well, it's this. Look, if this was coming over here to do random tests in fields in the middle of nowhere, I wouldn't care. That's a different situation. But this was a public event with people, with insurance. Someone surely should have said, can we just have our eyes over, you can't put an F1 car out without it going through Parc Fermé. We're talking something, all someone had to do was look at it. And it's, have you got all of the pictures? Yeah, let's go through the pictures, Gary.
Well, I've just realised as I put that picture up, I have got all the components to build exactly the same radio, and I tell you what fired me off was the cheap as arse blue USB cable that comes with these things. That's what. So I've got. Look, we'll have to desolder this. I can't remember what project I was making there, but I've got all the component parts to make their telemetry setup. That's the one they should have used, by the way, in the laptop, because it's the one with the USB converter. So they didn't need to put it through that.
So they're using that board there. That's the kill switch. So this is a custom wire.
That's the receive end of the kill switch. Yeah. So let's as you say, let's take ourselves further down. And funny enough, that failed, but I don't think that needed to worry about failing. Did we notice? Sorry, I've what shall I say about this week? I quite am often pretty exasperated by the industry, and this week it's helped me. But did we all notice that XT60 there's on the wrong way round on the board?
Yeah.
Yes, they did comment on that in the report, didn't they? And also using an R9. Now, I can't understand what could possibly be wrong with piloting a 95 kilogram UAV using a 10 milliwatt RF link on a non-aviation ISM band. What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing could go wrong at all. And I always think it's a good idea. I always like to, in a heavy vibration situation, just push my receiver down onto some pins. I always think that's perfectly adequate.
But even then, we know how reliable that gear. Generally, that gear is reliable. You know, even so, not using that. Look at the rest of the boards. Look at this. The damage. It's been thrown in there.
Yeah. Well, as long as you put it in one of the IP, whatever the IP rating thing is, as long as you put it in a box with, like, you know, big, and you have a shielded, of course, it's mandatory to have a shielded kill switch somewhere on your ground control station, then it's all right. It's perfectly fine. It's Velcroed on. It's Velcroed on inside.
Yeah, more zip ties and duct tape would have solved that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You can't even forgive the mask on the board being the wrong way around. That happens. You know, that just happens sometimes when you're designing boards, and if it's a version 1, but the rest of it is just as bad. You know, it was network cables to the ESCs, was it not? Cat 5, which was very strange. It's a very strange choice of cabling.
But did you read the report? Because it said it had redundant power systems because there were 4 motors.
4 motors. and it was look, here's the IMUs, isn't it? That's can you see my mouse? There's an IMU there, probably connected to that, and one there. So it's dual IMUs.
And weren't these like $10 IMUs or something like that? These were
they're even cheaper than that. Well, the flipping Arduino would be $1.
$1, yeah.
It's come on, people.
I can see how this happened, though, because this would have been a case. There were university students involved in this, and management would have thought, these are bright young people, they'll know what they're doing. And the bright young people would have thought, these are mature, sensible business people, they'll know what they're doing. Neither group knew what they were doing, and this is what you end up with.
Yeah, probably, when it came to the UK, it probably came, and because the flight control system was in its nice little box and looked pretty,
exactly.
The operation, the company that's operating, it was just looking, going, oh, it's in the box. We don't need to check in there. We don't need to see what's in there. And that's where the error starts, because the company probably didn't go, we'll just check and see what it looks like inside that box to begin with.
Well, that's, of course, what it looked like outside. It looked very swish, and they had all the marketing material with them, and they had all the chutzpah with them. And if you look at their LinkedIn, the people that work for them on LinkedIn, you'll see every other person is a marketing person. You can't find any engineers. I know other people have been called in to help them out with their next versions, and have, before this report was released, have refused to work.
Is there
with
going
them.
To be next versions? That's the next.
There is a next version. They're just promoting it. They're promoting it now as ready to go, ready to start racing.
You're kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding you. It's
they're stronger cable ties. Stronger cable ties, better duct tape, and they've used lead-free solder now, so it's going to be heaps better.
Okay, yeah, you've then got this. You know, look, we've got sloppy soldering, burnt wires,
broken USB ports. Oh no, that was you, Ian. Sorry,
that's me.
Yeah. It looks like I've made it. That's the thing. It does look like I've made it, which is damning. That is damning. Especially, we'll go down to the. I love this. The technical of these.
It doesn't need
curves, and
this.
that's a
We don't need that.
diagram. Yeah, it's a great diagram. That. Let's go down to. Oh, where's the cable ties picture? Let's not crash here.
Oh yeah, the cables around the frame, wasn't it?
Where are the cable tie pictures? Were they elsewhere?
But the worst thing is, they could have bought an off-the-shelf controller. So, the Cube COAV would have done it for $300 fine. They wouldn't have. But I'm guessing all of that work has been done to strip someone of money. So you've got students there who are trying to make it look like they know what they're doing. Because if I was going to build them tomorrow, that tomorrow, why would you even consider manufacturing the autopilot? You would look for something that's ready to go.
Well, I mean, at the end, we know that if they'd asked Pilot, they'd have said go away because they don't permit manned flight. But there was no GPS on board. This 2011 version 2 has more on it than they had on it. 2011, there's no need to reinvent the wheel, is there? Especially when you're considering flying something, has got a man on board eventually.
Look at that there. Those cables. Look, just that cable tie slips. That cable tie slips forward. It hits the button on the Cat 5 cable and it pops out. Yeah, that's instant.
Not only that, what's going on where the ESC is? So there's even a nice little red cable there, a little cable tie holding more wires together next to the big. What's going on just there?
Now? Where are you looking at now? So you've got
over here. And there's a switch. What's that switch for?
Well, yes, there's a switch. What makes you wonder? It looks like it's here to switch on and off. That's voltage by the look of it. There's a red and a black, so that's turning probably LEDs. Obviously we got the Cat 5 in. But look at that. That cable tie slips to the left. It hits the button and the cable pops out.
It's designed that way. It's like the Mars thing, when once it drops it to the ground and then the cables are severed and it flies away.
Oh, yes.
Look at the cable. So look at the ESC cables. Or look at the right-hand one. Is it me or is that cable tie severely stressed?
Oh, this one here.
Yeah.
That's over.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be on there. It reminds me, and I'm sure everyone's done it except Bruce. If anyone that's ever put the switch, the on-off switch for the gliders on the side of the fuselage, and then launched it and switched the flipping thing off. I'd never do a thing like that.
I've heard of
that. Ever do a thing like that myself. No. Never.
I always put the switch on the bottom underneath, so when you do a touch and go, it turns it off.
It turns it off. No, never do anything like that.
All my gliders, the switch is actually inside the cockpit, the quick release cockpit. Never on the outside. Never.
Yeah, I can't think that there was any. Were there any other interesting pictures here? I can't remember. I sat down on Sunday because I thought I'd write something about it. But the failure started a long time. But that's grown-up talk now. But it started a long time before any mitigation measures of 16 of the 22 hazards identified. But it started before they left home.
It's interesting, isn't it? That it's kind of like a collection of bureaucracies. CASA apparently gave it certain endorsements, and CAA thought, CASA must know what they're doing. They're regulators. And so regulators relying on regulators is the worst possible thing. Just like FAA said Boeing must know what they're doing because we're allowing them to self-certify. No, there should be no trust between these organizations. Everybody should do their job, not trust that someone else further along the food chain has done it.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very good analogy. I haven't thought about it. And I love this picture.
So is this one it took whilst it was heading off into the sunset?
Yep, that's it. And they use these images because there was no onboard data recording of any sort. Something you could have got with a version 2 Pixhawk with a GPS as well in 2011. They used photogrammetry to work out how high it went. So that's it at 8,000 feet in controlled airspace. On the end of the DME, VOR, something like that, into Gatwick. So this is the first real, actual, definite, confirmed drone in Gatwick airspace.
I'm surprised that hundreds of airline pilots didn't see it from miles away.
From France. France is over the back of there.
They can see a Phantom, right? A 200, whatever. How fast a passenger jet? They can see a Phantom go past the wing at Sophos, yet they can't see that thing the size of a freaking car.
Can you just? Is there a way to zoom into the front end of that image? Is there any way you can zoom in
around the camera? Which bit did you want?
I'm just curious at the front there, the wiring. Look at that there. You can see where the ESC is, and just to the right of the ESC. Yeah. So I just being nosy now. I'm just seeing how bad it really looks before you see the crash version. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think a very common problem. This is where we need a grown-up from Argipilot to jump on. But I think a very common problem with autopilots is vibration, isn't it? And
see,
causing a climb.
What they should have done is the motors, the wiring should have gone in the ends of the arm there. That ESC should have been in the main body, not on the outside. Completely rewired it that way, coming up and in. So you'd have the ESCs at the front somewhere where they're going to be cool. You know what I mean? So they shouldn't be there. The wire should have gone around, under and in.
Yeah.
ESC should have been up in the main body. That bag wiring there, along there and there should just be gone. Although that box, that IP rated plastic box, someone should have
So what have they said what the official flyaway cause was? Have they come to the conclusion?
Loss of control link, I think.
They're simply saying loss of control link.
Yeah, even though they had that magnificent 10 milliwatts of power streaming out there, I guess that the kill switch was only 5 milliwatts and it couldn't quite go as far as the radio link. So when they hit the kill switch, nothing happened.
So who failed to set up the RTH?
Well, it can't. It's got no GPS.
No GPS.
No GPS. There's nothing there. There's nothing.
And the fail-safe condition.
Yeah,
the fail-safe behavior was to go level and just maintain the throttle settings. So it was like just angle mode, throttle settings held. So it was in a gentle climb. It just kept climbing. It wasn't fall out of the sky and protect the air traffic. It was I always set mine to fall on the ground and brake, and it works really well.
They could even set it at 40% throttle or 30, and it would have gently come down. It might have come with a bit of a bang, but at least it's not going to plummet from the sky. You don't want it going up. You want it coming down.
On my flight controller, I tick the little box that says land safely.
Yeah.
What the CAA actually stipulate is for your fail-safe, especially so even model flyers, right? The most basic fail-safe we have is you have to set your throttle to kill. So if you lose the radio link, the most basic setting,
unfortunate too,
throttle gone. And
they did, Mark. They set the unit to kill, is what they did, and that's what they did. Sorry,
so now we're getting back to these airliners and exploding engines, are we?
Yeah, but there's the autopilot. In fact, I might even have another 2 switches in. Who puts switches in things that are going to vibrate and go? It's just I'm a ranty old man, aren't I? I'm a ranty old man, but it's so shoddy that the manned aviation community has grabbed hold of this very, very hard, saying, "Look how dangerous those devils are!" And and we know on the ground control station, the LoRa antenna was vertical. Looking as horizontal on that won't make too much of a difference with LoRa, but how well does LoRa work?
Isn't it 433 the kill switch? Imagine how much RF noise on 433s with all those microprocessors switching away in there.
Didn't they have it on 915? I think.
No, that was the control link.
Yeah.
Oh, was that the control link?
And where is this box located? What's the frame of this thing actually made of?
Well, I wonder if we look at it there. So there it is there. And we go back. All this preparedness I had. Is anyone feeling it's all that flashing lights? It's causing this. Someone might have an epileptic fit now. If I go back down here, I'm wondering if, when we see the underside of it, if that box is there. Oh no, that must be batteries. That's batteries, isn't it?
Yeah, it is batteries. You can see the battery.
So box. I wonder then if that box is actually on top of the battery, batteries. Therefore, the batteries are between
and the carbon frame,
the carbon
panel, the carbon shell,
and the metal work, which is all grounded. Bruce,
because remember, previous test flights were done at a higher power level because they could only run 15 or 25 milliwatts in the UK on that frequency, but then when they recovered, it was only set to 10. So this was way lower power levels on the control link than they'd ever run before, and they wonder why it flies away.
I like it. So stop just there. Oh, you can pass it.
Go on.
It's saying about 915 megahertz there.
Yeah.
And it was saying other users could be on it.
Well, yeah, because it's 915 is not
It's an
ISM.
ISM band.
Yeah. It's not. No, it's in the UK. It's cell phones.
It's not for aerial use, not for aviation use.
Yeah.
I'm surprised there's no channel jumping system either.
Well, there is, but 915 is a very narrow band.
Yeah.
Well, this is Ofcom confirms. As I say, I said it in the comments, and it's a showy off thing. But when we all flew at Farnborough, a big event, 75,000 people, lots of insurance, missiles, guns, and all that there, Ofcom wouldn't accept the radio integrity statement or whatever it is. That's the wrong word, from McGregor, the UK JR agents. They had to ask Japan, and Japan had to send the paperwork in for that. And then you watch this thing comes in, flipping Goodwood, flying on a couple of these. It's like, come on.
And I bet they didn't pay their TV license.
Exactly. I even went for a colour one for it, everything. So it's insanity. All our stuff was, well, I suppose because it was Farnborough, but everything was gone through, absolutely gone through. Nobody's word was accepted for it. But yeah, it is like the FAA thing. She's like, because CASA wouldn't release data, would they, to the UK CAA, saying it was
Privacy Acts.
Privacy.
All sorts of privacy thing. It's just the big dodge for everybody, isn't it?
Well, it's when it's needed, isn't it? It's only private when you need it to be private. But yeah, so what was that relay set to do? What was the I can't remember.
The relay was for the kill switch. That's the kill switch.
Yeah.
And it was normally, they used the normally closed contact. So the default condition was not dead, whereas the default should have been dead. And it should have been, if they lost the kill switch link, it should have gone into automatic failsafe, but it didn't. And so there was no checking. It was there was no implied, the failure mode was fly away, not crash. It's like, oh no.
Again, it's like I made it. It's like I made it. That's terrible. How? So yeah, to my mind, it failed before it left. It failed before it got on the plane, and it should have been inspected. And if they couldn't, and the reason they couldn't fly it for the CA is because they crashed the one the night before. And I remember somebody, an SUS News reader or this YouTube gig viewer, was at Goodwood and emailed me and said, "Hey, do you know they crashed that thing tonight?" And so I knew about that crash before it was public knowledge. So they quickly cobbled together this one, didn't they? And
didn't they transfer over some of the electronics? Probably
they did.
Electronics always survives a crash. You never get cracks in PC boards or broken wires after a crash.
No. Well, I was surprised they bothered doing all the X-rays and all that as well. The investigation people,
paid by the hour.
Yes. I mean, the worst thing that's going to happen from this is, of course, manned aviation is going to kick up a stink, aren't they? And say, this is how shoddy we build. Yeah. And they'll taint us all. They taint us all with the same. Now, hang on a minute. What happens if an engine cover comes off a plane?
It never happened.
Never. That couldn't happen. It's impossible.
This isn't even hobby grade electronics. This is experimenter grade electronics. But the hobby will be burdened with this thing forever.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly the term they're throwing around, isn't it? It's hobby grade electronics, and that is really doing a disservice. In the UK, the Large Model Flying Association has basically a C of A for anything over 20 kilos by law. You have to have it. All model aircraft over 20 kilos have it, and it is, you know what this scale, be it peanut scale rubber band tissue or all the way up to 50, 60 kilo model airplane. The guys that really engineer it. They over engineer everything and do a fantastic job. And this thing couldn't have passed the Large Model Association's 20 kilo rule thing.
Even the scrutineering at your average model flying field on a Sunday morning before people fly, this would not have passed.
It wouldn't. This would not have got off the ground at a model flying club. One of the club members would have gone, "You're not flying that." If you showed up at my club with something like this, badly wide, I'd be like, "You're not flying that."
This looks like something Tim would build.
Well, I think we'd all have a go, but I wouldn't fly that. That's bad news.
You just wouldn't, would you? You'd just look at it and go, nah.
Nah.
But free flight is a part of the hobby. We've got to admit it.
Very true. Yes, very true. Fair point. Well made. Fair point. Well made.
That's a rubber band.
So, well, what I personally think, I was looking for that prototyping board because I know I've got one of those somewhere as well in these drawers. I think personally, this is going to be worse for us than Gatwick itself. That whole big incident, because the people that we want on our side in general aviation and aviation are now saying, "Ha ha ha! Told you so." And
I already know someone that's going to do an article, and they're gunning and using this to their advantage. They run an RAE, so I won't name them, but they're going to turn this. They're going to do an article in a magazine, they said, and they're definitely going to spin it to their advantage.
They run an RAE and they're going against the industry. Well, they're assholes. There you go.
Well, they're using it to their advantage. It's their business model is they dish on all model flying anyway. That is
okay.
You're not professionals. So that's their general stance anyway. Okay. But they're going to use this to go, look, this is what hobby flies build to, where it's not, and we know it's not.
Email me their name later on. We'll deal with that.
But this is a failure of the regulators. This isn't a failure of the people who built this thing. It's a failure of the systems, the safety management systems that CAA has in place. They have failed. They should be carrying the can. They should be apologising. They should be telling us how they're going to remedy this without impacting the hobby who wasn't involved.
100%. This is 100%. Anyone can build things the way they want to. That's fine. At the end of the day, that's not down. This was a public event that was given special permission with an operating safety case. An OSC was put in place. Someone should have scrutinized that vehicle before a battery was ever allowed within a kilometer of it, let alone as Bruce said, 100% regulation failure, nothing more, nothing less.
Did I not read that a member of CAA was there, but he was in the hospitality tent or something?
Oh,
it's even before him, Bruce. This should have been there should have been. Here's a good thing. Why wasn't it had a third-party assessment before the day? This is not a COTS piece of equipment. It's not a commercial off-the-shelf piece of aircraft. If someone had said, I want to fly an M600 on the day to take some really good footage, they know what they're getting with that. They have a history of use case. We have a history of operators. We know the risk is the operator, not the equipment at that point. This is a complete unknown. Surely someone should have been, right, we need a third-party engineering company to give this the once-over before we allow this to take place.
I'd have chucked some money at an LMA inspector and say, why don't you come and have a look at this? Just do us a favour. Come and have a look at this, won't you?
At their cost. It was a promotion event. Let's not forget this. It was nothing more than promotion event for them.
Yeah.
Well, commercial pressure was going to come into play. Oh, look, they've flown in from Australia. Oh, it's Goodwood. Oh, we've got to let it go. Oh, UK industry. Wah, wah, wah. So it's awful on commercial pressure as well.
Well, and do you know, right, it's one of the things you learn in the GVC course and even in the A2, right? Commercial pressure, doing something that you shouldn't do or is unwise, okay, or there's a risk, and the risk is, obviously, there's risk versus reward you've got to be careful of, because if you get sucked into that game, right, so the risk and the reward of doing this, and they got sucked into that game, and that's where they failed. And it's all the way through the basic operation, not checking over the aircraft. And what was interesting is this person that told me they're going to do this article, they said the LMA wouldn't be a good enough inspection for them because it's commercial and the LMA doesn't deal with commercial.
Yeah, well, the LMA made early doors in the UK made because the CIA did ask them to do drones, and they said no, we're doing ours, which is fair enough, and I respect them for that. And the BMFA sort of took that view as well, but at very least,
the LMA guys are probably the best around when it comes to this kind of stuff as well.
Oh yeah.
Now, the fact they don't touch commercial shouldn't diminish the fact that if they had looked at this, they would have torn it to bits. They would have not let that fly.
It's not even that. You've got companies like 3DXR in the UK who are known to the CAA to be manufacturing drones for both commercial and other stuff I won't go into use. You know, you've got a number of proper builders in the UK who could have given this from the drone industry a once over and just said, we're okay with this. I can tell you now, if Ben from 3DXR had seen that, he wouldn't have let it leave his workshop, let alone anything. It would.
But then you've got to wonder, who are the inspectors at the CAA? Who were they? Who got the golden ticket to go to the hospitality tent in Goodwood and ignore what was inside those the boxes? I mean, I put, I would want an engineer looking at the batteries before we'd seen this. If I was going up to it, I'd have been most frightened of the battery setup. Yeah. Because I would have assumed the autopilot and everything were really cushy.
Well, here's the thing: you can't drive a car in the UK without an MOT. If you come in from abroad, all vehicles must have had some form of check that is transferable. So, we don't let a car on the road without it going through an inspection. Yet we're going to let this thing at a public event fly.
Well, so this is the interesting bit then. So we all know we're going to get C-rated aircraft. Okay, does this justify the C ratings coming in?
It probably would have passed. Because at the end of the day, it's self-certification again.
Yeah, yes, it is.
It's too heavy. It's too heavy for that, isn't it?
But you know what I mean, Mark.
But will it now be? Maybe there will become that push because we have got the PDRAs. O2, haven't we? That allows you to fly up to 150 kilos now within a certain speed, within a certain distance of the pipe.
People.
Uninvolved people and everything. So if you're in the middle of sticks, you could actually take this aircraft out again and just fly it under a PDRA.
But that'd be okay in the sticks, not a national event.
Well,
look,
you can still have people come to it. You know what I mean? You can still have clients come and watch it. But
I hate to bring this bit up. Okay, there was a major incident 5, 6, 7 years ago where that plane crashed at another event in the UK because the pilot Shoreham. Okay, look, we know things go wrong. It's clear since then they haven't learned for public events. They haven't learned their lesson at public events. Everything must be scrutinized, including the people. And we know, look, the human factor here is the designers, not the pilot. It's no different, though. It's still a human factor. The human factor here is poor design, bad design, but it's still a human factor at play. So you can't just sit there and say, we've checked the pilot. Is he okay? What about the guy who designed it? What about the guy who soldered the wires? You have to get down to every level. I remember there was a company I know who had a major product recall, and it was caused by one person on a production line on one day that basically didn't use the right tool to put a component on the board. That resulted in a major product recall campaign because one person thought he'd cut a corner on one day. So there's no excuse here. Regulation, the CAA deserve their arse handed to them for this because it's they allowed this to go ahead.
And who would hand it to them? We should ask Richard. He might know. Who would have handed it?
Let me do it.
Oh, you'll do it. Okay. Oh, fair enough.
Well, I think it's criminal negligence. If look, this is criminal negligence. Let's not shy away from this. The negligence is they haven't done what they should have done, and that would stand for a business. We can't do that business. They're not a British company, so we can't. If that was UK, that would, if someone got hurt, would have been corporate manslaughter.
They stretched the truth quite dramatically on their operational safety case, be they Australian or not. So that means with a South African company, I could come across there, break the law, and come back here, I'd be fine. You couldn't get me. They stretched the truth dramatically on their OSC. They said every person there would have a kill switch. There was one kill switch. They said that it had GPS and it had onboard flight recording. It didn't have
redundant systems.
And redundant, and redundant systems, and so on and so on and so on. How were they let back on a plane to get out of there?
We've got that right now with a case where a poor young lad died in the UK, Gary, and that's the reality. We have a situation where someone can come in, do something, get on a plane and get out, and they're gone. You know, that's the reality.
Anthony's saying if they killed somebody, the CIA would have been right up against it. Absolutely would have been right up against it, wouldn't they?
And it would have been on their heads, because at the end of the day, they said yes.
And they were there. So, you know, unless anyone had taken that box off that flight control, that IP box, no one would ever have seen anything.
And I don't blame the guy on the day. Funny enough, you say, Mark, you know, they were there. To be honest, his job wouldn't have been to heavily scrutinize. You know, all of that should have been done well. You know, the aircraft should have been brought into the UK, heavily inspected, given a pass, and then put there on the day. And the guys on the day's job was really to make sure they were following the agreed set of rules that were in place. It's not here, you know, the guy on the day was probably there looking around going, right, okay, they've done their setup, they've done what we've said, I'm going to have a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Well, help me understand then how we all five of us would have designed that and thought it had been A-OK and tickety-boo ready for the job. How would we have arrived with our flying car company at that conclusion? How did they leave Australia thinking that was okay?
Because, as I said, there's two halves to that system. There's the bright young thing straight out of university that know all the theory but can't solder for beans, and then you've got the management side who thinks that the bright young things out of university know it all because they got the degrees. And there's the gap, this huge gap between reality and perception on both sides, and there's nothing in the middle bringing the big picture together. I've seen this in companies a lot, especially large companies. There's no what I call the big picture person, the person who stands there and does total oversight of everything. They have a finger in every pie, and they spot these gaps between reality and perception in different parts of an organization. There was none of that. So both sides, that the techie guys thought that the business guys had it all sorted, the business guys thought the techie guys had it all sorted. In reality, each group was acting in isolation, unaware of the shortcomings of the other.
Thing is, though, you look at this isn't techie guys. Look, they have sold it on an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi and sold it on off-the-shelf IMUs.
These are the word sold it very loosely here.
Loosely is. You know, let's not pretend these guys are competent. Let's not even go that far, because, you know, if someone had completely designed an autopilot and you'd looked at this and went, okay, there's clearly been some design thought and effort gone in here. They have gone for, but these are $10 components. This is incompetence at the highest level from a design point of view. Let alone, you know, they are just trying to baffle investors with science. Someone somewhere has managed to get £1 million out of someone, and they're going to solder whatever they can find to a board to justify it. That's how it looks to me.
Yeah. But talking about these university guys, the guys that built that system were obviously software and electronic guys. They have no idea of the actual mechanics. They're fresh out of university. They probably don't even know that if you solder a wire like that, a vibration means it'll break. They don't know that you can't just push a receiver into pins on a board and it won't vibrate and fall off. They don't have any real world experience. They've just come out of university. They're up to their eyeballs in books and learning and everything, but they don't have the practical real world experience. I've employed a lot of university graduates, and some of them are really bright, but a lot of them are really dim. And the things we take for granted, the things we've learned over the years about how stuff works, they don't have any of that. They've just got the book learning, and that's a real danger when you don't have someone to oversee them and make sure that they're not ignoring the things that are obvious to you and I. And that's what's happened here. Those obvious things have been totally ignored. They put it together, it worked, job done. Not, is it going to work tomorrow? Not our problem.
Yeah, I'm astounded. Anything that you're going to put a person in.
It gets even crazier though, because if you think how much it actually costs to build that frame, okay, One battery in that thing, right, would have bought you a decent flight controller. Probably one battery, right? And it had what, 8 in there or something from the picture we saw? There was at least 8 in there, right? The cost of one battery, right, would have bought you a reasonable or decent flight controller that would have looked and been 10 times better. It's astounding.
But the thing is, when you are going out and trying pitching to investors, you've got to have a unique selling point. And you can't just say, oh, we just took some off-the-shelf stuff and put it in. It's using a flight controller by this company or whatever. You've got to say, we have developed our own flight controller technology, which is unique and powerful and fantastic and is better than all the others. And it's not a Pixel. No, it's not a Raspberry Pi. No, it's our own special technology that our university graduates have cobbled together, carefully assembled for us and designed. That's where the business people come in and they pitch this so the investors will put the dollars in. Investors don't want to invest in something that's just something you bought off the shelf. They want new technology that will give you a stranglehold on the market. You can patent, that you can leverage in the terms of intellectual property.
It's IP.
Look, the industry leading one's really small, but ours is in a really big box, so it must be better. It must be. Yeah.
Wasn't it a nice golden one, by the way?
That one was, yeah. But and that's got ADS-B in, which would have been handy at 8,000 feet.
You don't use black cable, use golden cable ties with that one, Gary?
Oh, yeah, unfortunately, that's why it's not flying, because I can't afford the gold cable ties. That's exactly right. It's all carrot, no meat. Oh, I've heard that said about Bruce.
Should we translate for Americans? Zip ties.
Zip ties, yeah. They could have gone anywhere.
I think we all know they could have put an Ace 32 in it and the damn thing would have flown better and safer. So yeah,
and it would have had more sensors and more everything.
I remember watching the videos, because this is the company that released videos of them making it and stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And there was there were a lot of warning signs back then, and
they did the hype piece very well, didn't they? They did that building out, failures. It flies.
Well, it wasn't a rendering, Gary. It wasn't a rendering. But isn't this the one that had a proper fly off in the field when they tested it one day with them? Yeah, it was like, bye.
Yeah, well, okay, so that's the one. I am full ranty mode tonight. So I sat down Sunday and I couldn't write about this. I was that angry about it. And largely for the hobby community, the word hobby grade being thrown around, and it is not hobby grade. It's not the engineering of the LMA and all those great people. Not in any way. They do much better work than this. But anyway, so then that brings you on to, so we haven't really gone over the airliners, but well, what about EHang being exposed, discovered, found out, revealed? The great skullduggery involved there, and they're kicking and shouting now. I've got another. Look! These are what we sold. These are what we actually sold. These are orders won to post. But urban air mobility, advanced air mobility, it's had a bit of a kick in this week, all in all.
Deservedly so.
Yeah. It's a simple bottom line, isn't it?
It's nonsense, and it remains nonsense, and the veil is beginning to drop, is probably the term I'd use.
You know, the man behind the green curtain selling the urban mobility.
Yeah. Well, but if you look at the investing press, which I don't understand any of it, but you'll see the people defending them, and the people that are putting a lot of money are kicking and screaming, and that must all be lies and whatever. Yeah,
well, they want to protect the reputation of the company long enough to divest themselves of their shareholding.
As Chris was saying, at least EHang's built the smoke machine. It has built the smoke machine. It's true.
They can't sell. It's like anything. If all the investors sell en masse, the share price goes down. So all they can do is talk it up and hope they can sell when someone else isn't looking, and everyone can try and get out with some modicum of, this is actually a very similar problem that Elon Musk faces right now with Bitcoin. When you leverage yourself in a company, something that big, the very nature of you pulling out is going to cause the price to tumble. And as much as Elon is going to make a lot of money if he sold today, he won't, because the second he starts pushing that $1 billion of Bitcoin out, the market's going to absolutely plummet. In fact, he could be the reason for the next crash. So he's stuck, and these investors are stuck. They've put their money in. Their only hope is that they can weather it enough that over the next year they can pull their shares out a little bit at a time.
I wonder if all those drone companies that have been spending all this computer power doing 3D renderings of their fictitious craft, I wonder if they're kicking themselves and going, damn, we should have been mining Bitcoin for those CPU cycles.
It would have brought in more money.
Well, maybe.
Yeah. But it's, you know,
yeah, I've had my render farm going. There's my render farm's been working hard.
It's we've seen it with GameStop. We've seen it. You know, we're in this point. Talk it up, reap the benefit. At some point, the big crash is coming, and we haven't seen the big drone crash yet. We've had the crash. I think we've reached the peak from a technology point of view. If we look at the tech a minute, in the sense of ready-to-fly drones have reached the iPhone 7. You know, the iPhone 7 was where things... You know, really, you could argue it was the iPhone 4, really. But, you know, it's reached a point where it's only now better cameras a bit and a bit longer battery life. And that's where we're at with drones now for the most part. But we haven't had the crash yet, the big crash on the... It's been a gamble.
It was at that airfield just the other... That's the crash.
Just as a bit of sort of how... ingrained, or how many of them are out there taking the children up to the mountains on Sunday, and there was someone I watched them put a Mavic Mini on the roof of the car and flew it off that, and I didn't even bother to stop and tell them that was a bad idea. But that's just in a flipping lane in Africa in the middle of nowhere. There's someone flying, so they're everywhere now. We've reached the saturation point, and
the amount of minis that are getting lost in the UK is astounding.
They must. I'd love to see the sales numbers on that. They must have sold millions.
So Palo Alto, DJI, they're not there anymore. Do we know anything? What was Palo Alto?
It's a weird one, because I've heard of it, and the whispers I'd heard was it was a software house relating to enterprise products. I believe it was along the lines of the DJI Terra stuff. I think. I don't really know what come out of there and how much of it, but I believe that's the case.
So they're switching the lights off everywhere now in America.
They are. Across the world. It's not just America, it's Europe. They've lost a lot in Europe.
Well, is it?
Yeah, if you look, a few people have gone from Netherlands and Germany, isn't it? Frankfurt, is it Frankfurt? I think is where their main German office is. Netherlands is the repair center, but they've also lost a few people out of Europe. There is no question they are pulling back.
Oh, there we are.
China.
Dan knew what it was. It's a North American DJI Enterprise warehouse.
Yeah, and there was also some software guys in there. Yeah, there was also some software, I believe.
So, American folks, do we know any more about what went down there? Because I've just heard one chap told me, and I have a feeling people are putting their feelers out looking for work. That's why it's out on the street. I have a feeling that's how it's getting out there.
So, how long before they end up at Skydio or Arterion? Because that's where all DJI-X employees end up right now. Is one of those two companies.
Quarter very soon, I should think.
Yep. It is. And if you look down the list of these people who have joined Arterion in recent times, especially, and Skydio, they're all swallowing ex-DJI staff.
Somebody asked me today to compile a list of made in USA aircraft, and I replied.
That took you long.
I'm going to fact check. I'm going to fact check my reply now with you guys. I said, well, it depends if you're going for the security angle, then there's only 5, and that's it. And that's the blue SUS. That's the only one you can say, because for everything else, you might actually only be able to say assembled in America. And, it's very tricky, isn't it?
Romeo left. Romeo's a good guy. I've never met him, never spoke to him, but he comes across a good guy. Romeo, I don't know him. He is very good at promoting, I'd say, himself and the company, and I suspect there's a point with anyone. Look, we've seen this with DJI before. If someone gets known above a certain point, we saw it with Colin many years ago. Someone gets known above a certain point. DJI have pulled things back to China. There is no question about that. They are no longer pandering to I'm not going to say West, but the US especially, I think they've decided the government will do what it does, and we're not going to worry about it. Because if they were serious, they would have put an enterprise production line in the US 3 years ago. They could have done it. There was nothing stopping them. Just like Apple. If Apple was serious about supporting the US, they could make iPhones in America. They turn around and say it's cost, it's nonsense. We know if you want an American-made drone and it costs twice as much, well, that's what it costs. People will buy it. The market's there for it. But they have no interest in doing it because they don't want to lose their IP into the US. They have no interest in sharing their closed software with the US government in the background. And that's what this comes down to.
And did I not see that there's been a little bit more app news?
Which one's this?
Security issues on the new app.
Oh, yeah. I talked about it Sunday. Yeah, it's funny. For the ready-to-fly users, this is nothing new. We've been facing silly stuff like this for a while, but the FPV guys are only now seeing it. Comes up as a Trojan. Might actually be one. No one really knows. We don't think it is. If you have a concern, don't install it. It's crap. It's shoddy. It should never happen, and it isn't good enough. But there are many things about DJI at times we can say that about. They make great products. Their software can be absolutely shocking at times. And this is a classic example of it. Well, and I'm not even going to say I don't know there's not a Trojan in there because I can't. No one can tell. As far as we're aware, this is a false positive. But that's only because if you run it through virus scanners, something like 8 will say there's nothing wrong and 2 will say something is. And the irony is the Windows one happens to be based off one of those 2, which is why it's triggering all the time.
And what happens in Kiosk Print? Maybe you could tell us what happens in Burbank. I should know. I don't follow DJI.
That was Burbank, I believed, was management.
Oh, okay. Oh, so is that where Brendan lives?
I think Burbank. They've still got some people because you've got Brendan, you've still got Adam. Adam's a good guy. Adam's. But look, how long have these guys got? Look, Brendan's worked for DJI for 7 years?
Good while.
You know.
So what are we going to say about airliners falling apart and why are we not jumping up and down too much? Or are we not? We're just going to say, oh, well, it'll happen. They fly lots.
Well said, Mark. I totally concur.
Well, there we are then. Right, moving on.
Right, yeah.
The problem is they are built by professionals, designed by professionals, and therefore they don't go wrong.
And until they spit bits of themselves all over the public. I'll be honest, they are 2 pretty horrifying incidents. You can imagine sitting on that 777 when that engine let go.
You'd think you were flying Qantas, wouldn't you?
That's a scary, scary thing. But it's not just that. The video of the parts coming down over the park with the kids were playing. You know, people started looking up. I don't know if you guys have seen this. They were looking up and they're like, what's that? And next minute, it's bits of the engine cowling. That front ear intake must have come down with some force. It's dented the car.
The guttering on that house.
Yeah.
There was a bit of a report that I don't know if you saw it. I don't know. Was it earlier today? They said metal fatigue has been found.
Oh.
Now, these are Pratt & Whitney engines, I believe, and it's the same type of engine, not the same engine, but the same design as in the, where was it, the Dutch? Was it the Dutch one, which started spitting blades all over? Yeah, which started spitting blades all over the streets and actually went through the roof of someone's car, injured 2 people, minor injuries, you know.
The thing is, right, it doesn't look like it's a Boeing issue as such. It's the engine that's, you know, something's wrong with that design maybe or something. We don't know exactly. But the sad thing is it's happening to Boeing. And Boeing at the minute, they keep taking a PR beating, you know, because people will just see the headline, Boeing engine. And poor Boeing, you know, while I will never step foot on the 737-8 MAX, I will never step foot on that plane. You know, when it's the 777 or something, it's not what you would expect to hear. You know what I mean? It just builds confidence from a PR perspective. You know, for every person, as you probably no, you guys know this. For every person that gets a negative, there's going to be 10 more because you talk to, it's considered it gets passed on to 10 more people. You could imagine, who would ever, Poor Boeing. I feel for Boeing in this.
I've got to say, I'm quite impressed with the safety systems that, in both cases, the aircraft landed safely. No one on the aircraft. I mean, it shows how well these things are built and designed. To lose an engine on takeoff, especially when you've got maximum takeoff weight, all that fuel, and then be able to come down and land safely with flames coming out the wing, that's pretty impressive, actually.
It's to be fair, the aircraft, both of the aircraft have held up shockingly well. To be fair, it's irony. Whilst Boeing won't get the positive press, there should be a lot of positive press that their aircraft survived major engine failures in both occasions. And
the pilots did a fantastic job. Let's be clear. The pilots, those guys, as soon as they realise, especially on takeoff, if you lose that engine, your thrust is massively down, because what people don't understand is that on a twin, if you lose one, you don't lose 25% of 50% of your thrust. You lose around 75% when this engine goes, because of the drag and everything. It all becomes dead weight. It's not a 50% loss when you've got engine cowling that's sticking up and everything. The power loss, this poor engine that survived has to do all that work. And the pilots did a fantastic job of getting that aircraft round and back down again, really.
I'm waiting for the Daily Mail story. It could have been a drone.
Did you see the video at the end? Sorry, go.
Well, I was just saying, it's interesting with the airspeeder thing that some said drone, some said flying car. That was quite interesting. I was definitely up for the flying car explanation.
It's interesting when you see the engine just rotating when it was, it'd blown itself out. You would be requiring more underpants after that. If you were sitting on that wing, let's sit by the window, darling. We'll have a lovely view of the wing and the engine. Then
there've been some uncontained failures where blades have come into the cabin, isn't there? Qantas had one of those? And they showed pictures where the turbine had blown up and blades had gone everywhere. If they cut a hydraulic line or rupture a fuel tank or something, that's not a good look. The debt collectors come to pick up Gary's car.
What's interesting, that cowling is actually meant to be able to contain those fan blades. If the engine lets go as such, that cowling is there to stop those blades going into the main cabin. That's what they're there for. There's
a big Kevlar blanket in there, isn't there? A big Kevlar to stop.
There's a blanket around it, and it should never. That cowling should never have come off like that.
It was probably a frozen turkey.
It looked like a grenade. It looked like something had, blown it. I was thinking, because have they actually said it's a blade failure on the 777 yet? Obviously, we know about the other one because they ended up on the ground.
I think there are failed blades, but whether they were the cause or not, it looked like an uncontained turbine. To get that amount of flame around the combustor unit, it looked like an uncontained turbine failure.
Because it looks something weird, because obviously that cowling is blown out. It's lost, it's ripped around and ripped the front end of it off. Makes you wonder if that front bit went up or under the wing, because that's not a small piece of material just to disappear.
Look, it didn't hit the tail. If you think about it, he was on the climb. You don't want it in the tail.
It's not just going to fall off, is it? It's not just going to go, oh, down I go. You're going that way, and it can only blow forward. So it's either got to go forward and down or back over the back of itself. Would have been a hell of some footage. I wonder if
only they'd had some cameras on it, like with the Mars rover when it landed. That was pretty impressive.
Come on.
Yeah.
FPV, no spotter in sight. I think they should get a fine from the FAA.
So what BV lost permission? Did they need to do that?
Fair play, though. By the book.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when you saw it, you see the heat shield drop off, and if you watch the rendering video, it's identical. They showed a rendering video of what would happen, and then they show the real one, and it's like, it's the same. And then when it lowered down, the lower bit is just the mind-boggling. It hovers there 20 meters and just lower.
There's a quadcopter kicking out 4 little bursts.
It was interesting you say that, Ian, because someone asked a question, one of the NASA live streams, how are you going to make sure people don't confuse the renderings and the actual footage? And they said, we're going to have to put little notes on the rendering so people know that they're not real.
Because it was like this is amazing. In fair play to him, it blew me away. Obviously, because the crazy thing, they were 7 minutes behind. So obviously, everything they were seeing was 7 minutes. So when we were watching it live, and they were saying, it's a kilometer, it's half a kilometer, it's 200 meters. It's already on the deck at that point in real time. But when you then see them line it up and then get the video and audio, it's just mind-blowing.
I can't wait to see the drone fly. Let's see the drone fly. That'll be exciting, won't it? Hop, hop, tip over, flap, flap, flap. Do the funky chicken. That'll be fantastic.
Well, hopefully we will see a video of that. Hopefully, won't we? We will get that at some point.
Yeah.
I've been working on the autopilot for it.
Oh, it's interesting. It's a British company.
Yeah, it's Laura.
It's a British company that made the parachutes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a Brit. Yeah.
Maybe they should talk to the Australian company with the drone that flew away. That'd be a handy thing to have on that drone, wouldn't it, eh?
And they put the code on the parachute, didn't they?
Yeah.
That was clever.
Very cool.
Did they put to the parachute?
They put was it binary? What, I can't remember what it was, but they put in the colouring. They put some wording. I'm going to have to.
Come on.
I can't remember what it was. Can anyone remember what the wording was?
But did you see the shots of the thing coming down taken from another orbiter with the parachute deployed? I mean, the synchronization is fantastic.
They are making it look easy now, aren't they?
Well,
they are making it look easy.
Well, the thing is, how many countries have landed on Mars then?
Loads that day.
Yeah. Well, technically we did with Beagle 2. We just forgot to stop.
It was a tunneling mission, wasn't it?
Beagle 2 is actually in the crater in one piece.
Yeah, didn't she? She did actually land. She just didn't unfold properly, wasn't it? If I remember.
One thing that got stuck. If they could get a rover to it and pull the arm down, it'll probably start working. To be honest,
they thought it had crashed, didn't they, for many years until it was looked at by the Mars orbital, and then they suddenly went, "Actually, she landed." Just didn't open her.
Didn't he pass away? Sadly, that chap.
Yes, he did. Only last year, wasn't it? Yeah.
Isn't the Beagle's still on a tea break, isn't it?
He looks like a farmer. He's the scientist that looks like a Cornish farmer. You look at him and I built you some cider, mate. I built
proper job.
I built myself a rocket and sent a thing to the moon. I did from the back garden.
There we are.
That's amazing.
It's very clever, But that team at JPL. They've done the last 6 rovers, and look at the success that team has had. They are literally
just blowing it out of water. Really are. It's absolutely incredible because that thing that lowers, it still had 80 odd kilos of fuel this time, didn't they? Because they had better sensors this time. So when it flew away, they said, "Oh, it still had 80 kilos of propellant left." That's astounding. It really is.
They could use one of those speeder things for that, couldn't they? They fly away. Yeah. Not that heavy. Yeah, that'd be perfect. Maybe they wrote the software for that. Who knows?
I want to see what cut the cables, because something I saw afterwards, and one of the images they showed was the umbilical was cut. And I was assuming it was like a pull-out connector, Bruce, or something like that. But no, something has gone through there.
Guillotined it. It's just completely clean cut, isn't it?
Yeah. So there must be
tied up with a shoelace. Where's the placenta? That's what I want to know.
Well, I want to know who's going to clear the litter up, because right now they're just littering Mars.
You see there's heat shields and bloody landing vehicles and parachutes all over the place there. I mean, gosh.
Yeah. I mean, just, it's bad enough we pollute this planet. I mean, come on.
It's awesome. It's that team.
But if someone said to you, "This is how we're going to drop a vehicle on Mars," I mean, it's like you think, could you make it more complicated? Could it be more prone to failure? Are there more issues likely to crop up here? But no, it's the damn thing. It's so complex, but it works because they've got real engineers on the job.
We're going to fire it into the atmosphere. We're then going to slow that down with a parachute, then drop it, then use another rocket ship, because it goes in free fall from the parachute again, doesn't it? The third stage, it then drops before the rocket engines kick in, and then the engines kick in to slow it down, and then just for fun, it stops and then lowers it down very gently.
It's just a good thing they don't have Elon doing that descent stage, because only about 1 in 4 would land. They'd fall off the boat or to go in the water or something.
They had one go last week, didn't he? That rocket failed first time in a long. First time, what's it?
39 flights or something.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, really. It was its 6th flight of that booster. Yeah, and it missed the ship, didn't it? They're not sure what. I don't know if we've heard why, but it just didn't make
it. Illuminated the horizon.
Yeah,
it was right.
Some way off as well, and it hit the water. Interestingly, I did get my sign up for Starlink today as well, if I want it.
It's expensive in the UK, though. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
89 quid a month, Gary. That's a lot of money for broadband.
But have you seen?
That is what I pay right now for my 4 meg line.
Well, 4 meg line. So guess what Elon has also said about Starlink will happen in the next 2 to 3 years?
Increasing the speed.
Doubling it. It's going to be bonkers.
Hang on a minute. Hang on. There's my house. There's ones over my house right now. I'm not.
Nice.
I am in no way excited about this prospect.
That's all.
No way. Not even interested. I don't care. I don't watch these at all.
No.
Ever.
So
ever.
So have a look over the UK, Gary. So they've got a Starlink map. I didn't realise this. So just to be clear, the upload is direct upload to satellite from the unit. Yes, I haven't missed anything on this. It is upload.
And downlink.
Yeah.
So it's up and down to the satellite. Their plan is, look at that, it's covering us now.
It's doing all right.
There you are. There's your house.
How many have I got there? I got 1, 2.
I'll be all right because I'm on the right-hand side. So I'm near the 552.
Oh, so you're
there's
there.
There's not a lot of coverage when you realise if everyone in the UK was using it, you'd all get 1 bit per second.
Well, no.
There's a change just gone. Look.
Yeah, that's the current lot, isn't it? That they're going into sync now.
It is scary when you look at how many of these there are now, though. When you
Just
start
one
doing
over
that,
my
Gary,
house. Just one.
Yeah.
Elon now runs more. I think he now runs more satellites than anyone else that are private industry.
You better be getting ready to do it because look, I've noticed actually. I have noticed there's quite often a little glitch here, just above that Swaziland there, above Swaziland. There's often that little glitch, but we're all right here. So I've assumed that Johannesburg's over here, Durban's down here, Cape Town's there. So
yeah, because it's all going around that, isn't it? If you look at it now, even the propagation, that's heading that way. That's heading that way. Oh, you got this one. He's going to go. Yeah. But is he going to roll around here a bit more, perhaps?
I can't wait to start bouncing off each other. We get sparks in the sky. It'll be brilliant.
So what's the difference between the green and the...
I don't know. Colour. Yes.
The best thing about Starlink, no country will be able to put a firewall up against it. All those countries that try to hide...
You could still do local jamming. You could still do ground level local. It would be fairly easy.
But that means every country that wants to protect their
snooker break.
And how are they going to do geofencing of internet stuff when your IP number will be not linked to a location?
Yeah, it's going to be very well. It's revolutionary for China. Yeah,
it's down. It falls down in America. You get you're an American internet basically.
Yeah,
which is great for us because here, laptops, smartphones, and now they're proposing just quite simply because our terrestrial TV, we're finally switching off analog next year, but our terrestrial TV is had it. So today, not only did laptops get bought in as needing a TV license, but every household by default will have to have a TV license, whether you have a TV or not.
What's this?
So this will be the service to activate your DJI drones through. You won't have to worry about that hack for the FCC thing.
Just do it. It's interesting. So I haven't checked. What's the frequency of Starlink? What's its capability like through, say, Perspex?
It will work through basic things. So it doesn't matter where you take it. So it will work in snowy conditions and wet conditions as well. And it doesn't matter because people took it into a forest to try it out. It will still work. Like, going to.
Because, if people are going to want to do this in places where you're not legally allowed, let's talk about China. Is going to be a big, interesting conversation. If people want to put this on the roof of the building, it's going to have to be hidden because
it's geolocked. It's geolocked to your address. It's geolocked to 20 kilometers around the address that you sign up.
For now.
So,
because if
someone can find a way, but
I'm just thinking, if you imagine, there are countries that are not going to want their populace to be having products like this. So you're going to have to hide this on your rooftop. So it's going to have to be in something. And I wonder how well it will work through, say, a tent or something, some box that looks like an air conditioning unit made out of, suddenly, did you know, here's a business, suddenly start making tents that look like air conditioner units to go on the roof of buildings for Starlink.
I would have thought, because it'd be like mobile phones, the signal will penetrate buildings to a degree. So just stick it in your loft.
Yeah.
Yeah, but most roofing is metallic, and even I think even tiles would probably be fairly high attenuation, especially if they were damp.
True. My solar panels will block it as well. So
it is scary how many satellites there are. That's incredible.
Are we keeping you up, Ian? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's been a late night.
You wait until he puts his own server farm up there as well, because when he does that will be the ultimate game changer, where you'll log into Netflix and you'll have American Netflix. You just go, fine by me.
I'd consider it if he gets the speeds up. At the moment it's 100 meg. It's not worth it for me in the UK because I pay about £28 for 100 meg. If he was able to give me gigabit, for instance, I'd be there.
It's on the cards. That is the end goal.
I don't think that'll happen in any volume though, because you've got the constraints of the amount of bandwidth you've got available, the number of people using it. You can't put a quart in a pint pot.
No.
Well, that is the exact complaint that the ISPs in America have made to the FCC. They've said that Elon cannot provide within 10 years. You won't get the data bandwidth across this network. But the way Starlink are now doing it, there's the version, is it version 4 satellites or something? They keep changing, they keep upgrading them as they do them. Better hardware. But if they have their servers up there, the bandwidth's not going to be a problem.
The other issue, the UK's hit stagnant point. The UK had a massive push on fibre to cabinet broadband. It was called the 21CN network. That was done over the last 15 years. It's been pretty much everywhere for about 4 to 5 now. There are still some communities not quite got infinity, as BT like to call it, but it's fibre to cabinet. Fibre to premises has pretty much been a no-go only in brand new estates. So in the UK, we've really hit a roadblock. Those of us now who have the current broadband, we're now stuck at 70, 80 meg. There is nothing around the corner that these guys have hinted at other than 5G from mobile networks that's going to increase our speeds. So they all need a kick. We need him to put pressure on the networks to do something, because otherwise we'll be stuck.
In Australia, they've used fibre to points where they then use wireless to the house.
Is that how they do it? Okay.
Yeah. So they can still give with 5G pretty high throughputs. But I mean, we've got fibre to the home here in New Zealand, which is I've got a gigabit connection here. There's no way we're going to get anything like that from satellites, because even though you keep upgrading the technology, like, we started with 300 baud modems and went to 2400, 9600, 14K, 456K. But what happens is there are laws of physics that constrain the amount of bits you can send through a particular bandwidth. And because we're using a finite resource, which is the RF spectrum, and even Elon Musk can't make more of that, he's going to hit a brick wall when he gets to that point, and his links are saturated.
Yeah,
it cross down or a laser, aren't they?
So So what they're also doing is, in every state in America will have its own. They're connecting to the main server hubs, to the main internet backbone. They are building them as they do it as well. So he's doing what he did for his cars. So when he built his Teslas, he put the infrastructure in place first, didn't he? So the car charging points. He's actually doing it with Starlink as well on the sly. He's doing exactly the same thing. They're putting into the main backbone across America and any other country, so they can get the speeds. And so your signal might go straight up, but it might only go 10 kilometers because it'll just go there. It won't have to go across the whole network to come back down again. It will go straight to the closest hub or backbone if it can do.
So what you're saying is, if your Tesla runs out of charge miles from anywhere, an Elon Musk death ray will come down from space and recharge it,
charge it, and then incinerate it.
Yeah, but he thinks about it and goes, right, this is what we have to put in first. We have to get this right first, and then we can have the car that will then drive 200 miles, for example. That's just
Here's your
amazing.
gateways. See the gateways down there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is interesting, the issues. He's putting a lot of pressure on the US, especially. The US cable providers are crapping themselves. They really are. They are not happy at all. But it'll be interesting to see now which way BT in the UK go, or OpenReach in the UK, because OpenReach is still fumbling around trying to get cable in for 21CN. Where do we go next? If they're not careful, 5G will eat their current business model overnight, because 5G potentially could still bring fast speeds to the masses in city locations. It's not going to help urban, but it will help city. So the network providers have to do something. They're coming on onslaught from Elon Musk and many others now. So, I want 1 gig. Bruce has got fiber to his house. Why can't we have it?
I had satellite internet back in the 1990s, had a big dish and had 400 kbits downlink and a dial-up uplink. And it worked. It was great, unless it was raining.
I actually have fibre. It's just there. Well, actually, it's just over there. The Ethernet comes in there. So I actually have fibre, but I don't have gig.
Well, Steve's saying in Devon he can get 7 megs a minute, and my parents in Somerset are just the same. It's the flipping Bristol glitterati stopping the internet going further west. That's what it is.
He's going to change the face of the internet in the UK for a lot of people. All those people in the rural areas. I'm in Lincolnshire. If you drive 5 miles out of here, you're looking to get 3G. You're looking to get anything. 5G can come to the cities. People that bang on about 5G is going to unlock self-driving cars. It's going to unlock drones. Just that and the other. No, it doesn't.
High score, new high score from Ian, is it? But I remember the days when you could put the entire internet on one of these, eh? How we've come a long way.
Those were the days. The old bulletin board systems where you used to dial up on your 9600.
Fido, mate. You can't beat Fido.
9600? 9600? Come back.
I have 300 acoustically coupled.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, war game.
And there was no one to call. I had the modem, but there was no one to call. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, it was... The internet's just changed the world, because I remember when it came here, the first Virgin, what was it? It was NTL back then. We had 512 was our first fast connection, 512 kilobytes. And then and that was a long time ago now, but wow.
My first ADSL was 128 kbits.
Wow. I mean, I did have my first modem was about a 9600 board or something.
Luxury, love, luxury.
44, and all the way up to 56.6.
When I ran my news service, I had to have 3 dial-up lines to get enough bandwidth, and I lived in the country, and they're all screaming away at about 9,600.
Sorry, that was just the sponsored spot for the cheer, Gary. Fair
enough. Yeah, fair play. Yeah.
Well, is it me, or wasn't 56k board modems? Wasn't there 2 types?
Well, it was 33k, 56.
Versions of 56.
42 bits, wasn't it?
Yeah, you had 56k plus, I think it was at one point, and then ISDN come out, and it blew people's minds. You could have a single 64k link or double it up for 128 if you were really... I remember my friend got quite a good job in an IT business, and they, as part of it, they gave him 128k ISDN, and we were like, this is unbelievable, this is the future. And then the good old days. I had a 14, it was a V32. They all sort of sped things up a little bit. It was always connecting at 56k, but it sort of didn't.
So where are we then? We better bring it around to the drone conversation. So against modems, the old duffers that are here talking modems, where are we then? Where's the drone industry in the world of modems? Have modems as the drones hit IDSN yet? Where are we?
We've reached peak dial-up, I think. Peak dial-up.
Peak dial-up.
I suppose the next interesting question is, how can we shrink this hardware that Elon has to get it in an aircraft? Because look, the reality is, beyond visual line of sight, becomes anywhere on the globe close to once that network's in place. Now, the current limitation is if you put that dish on top of it, you'd probably notice looking how big it is. But how long before we then have your control link is online entirely?
I see, because if you're in a drone, you're closer to the satellite, you need to use a smaller antenna.
They are looking at Starlink doing phones, and if they can get it down to phone size,
Really?
you can imagine you imagine an M200 could literally have something this big. It would work, and funny enough, what else would that provide? A UPM or electronic conspicuousy in a new way, wouldn't it?
Well, you think if he's bringing in, if he can bring in local base stations as well, he could completely disrupt the mobile networks as well. He could literally turn their business on its head.
Much bigger than disrupting the internet business.
Yeah.
That's much.
But you've got the GPS network, it's satellite based, and you've got a little tiny receiver in your phone, picks it up perfectly. It doesn't broadcast back. But I mean, it's the technology will go that way. Your battery may not last the whole day. You may have to have a long lead on your phone to keep going. But because we're already satellite phone, you've got those satellite phones. And the technology is there.
When he's got so many of those low Earth satellites there, he'll actually disrupt GPS unless you're using ElonNet GPS from his own level 2U network of devices.
Do Elon satellites give you the iridium flare?
No, and they've painted them. They painted them black.
Well, some of them now,
some of them have special sunshades, don't they? Whatever they call it.
Camo, painted them camo.
Yeah.
But can you imagine though something the size of a phone? Obviously, the DJI Mini 2 won't carry it, but Mavic size, maybe slightly Inspire size, M600, M300. Delivery drones, they could all have some sort of receiver on them and transmitter, and it all go through Starlink. It would be,
can you put that? Can you put the image of the Starlink up again? There's something interesting on this.
Oh.
We don't.
It's not interesting. It's funny, but it's
geek interesting.
Well, it's not. It's what.
Hang
on, it's coming. Where must I?
No, it doesn't matter. Just the image. Just the image of satellites covering the entire globe. Yeah. So the end of the world started, Gary, when a man put all these satellites up around the Earth. In future times, we'll be looking back in 50 years' time of where did it all go wrong, and that image there will be the beginning of it. All of those satellites. Can you imagine 5 years ago saying one man would control a network of satellites that covered the entire globe? It's a scary
and thus
thought.
It began. And people in the Arctic circles are
that's
disappointed.
That's rendering off a movie. You look at that, you'd have seen that in a movie 5 years ago. Now it's a reality, and one man owns that. Is that really a good thing?
It's when Hitchhiker's Guide, when they all come to destroy the Earth, and it's all formation and.
And welcome our new artificial intelligent overlords.
Well, it wouldn't take much to get rid of them, would it? You can just chuck a weapon up in there. You'll get rid of them quite quickly.
It is scary, though, isn't it? To see a network like that around.
See that little gap.
People only fear that which they do not understand.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? That gap continues.
After that little gap there, just that vice was around.
It's a conspiracy, Gary. There's something there they don't want you to know.
The Kruger National Park's here. It's all down here. Same size as Wales. That's a Kruger Park down there.
Between the gaps is where the truth lies.
I used to live there, up there. Yeah, they haven't worked out.
It's interesting how fast it moves through as well. So it must be constantly changing lock on satellites continuously, isn't it? You know, you've only got a couple of minutes on each one, haven't you?
Yeah, so it is a motorized dish, so it points to the strongest satellite it's receiving, and then it'll move to the next one when it needs.
So does it track it across its visible line and then moves to another one and then moves to another one?
Yeah.
So it doesn't stay static, because if you look at, there's a static dot, Gary, the satellites are coming into it and out of view. So it actually, that's interesting. So it's
I'm surprised it tracks. I mean, how long are the motors and that going to last after a couple of years of constant backwards?
I don't think it tracks much. No, I think you get assigned a portion of the sky and it stays pretty much in that portion of the sky. So look, you go west from Wales there, and you'd be all right with that one.
What are these ones then? What's this one then? Why is this one smaller? What's the score with that then? If you look at that one's smaller.
So that's 296 Ks, and these are 551 Ks up.
Okay.
So what he's done is as well, so he's got them all fairly high. He's actually requested to drop the height on the newer ones, and again, it kicked off stink again because he's dropping the height to get better signal strength.
And these are the ground stations, look, in the States.
So, and that's what I mean. If you look at every state will nearly have one, and you'll have a satellite that covers multiple, so they're on the backbone to the gateways, aren't they?
So it's a giant mesh network, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that one's good, isn't it?
This one, so you can see his complete network. It's not there.
Is there any in the UK? Was there any in the UK?
Some in France. The EU's getting some.
Yeah, we'll have them as well. I'm sure.
Not showing. I know there's some in Germany.
Yeah, there was on that list, on that gateway list you brought up earlier. There was Germany and France.
Don't know how to get that back. About key, I don't know.
So that's a new string that's gone up. Then those ones we can see there. That's a new string.
Yeah. Another lot of there was one down there, and I guess that's them sort of de-stringing themselves. However, they do it.
What's the life on these again? What did he say was the lifespan estimated?
It's not long, but they launch every 2 weeks, don't they?
Yeah, they look is it 2 weeks or every month or something? It's ridiculous. So and I think they've got a 1% failure at the minute, but there's only 1,000. Is it 1,500 or something? It's not that. There's not as many as you think up there, but there's a lot. But yeah, it takes about a month or so for each string to get into its into its sync.
Amazing, isn't it? It is amazing, as you said, Ian. It is. I suppose it is. How can one man? But look, my house is pretty well served. Look.
It is.
So they haven't launched there yet, Gary. No, they haven't officially.
No, but I'm on the list. I've paid my deposit, so we shall see. But obviously it'll be a few more yet. And they're talking to our regulator in CASA, and that'll be a problem. Raspberry Pi's 400s don't exist here yet because our regulator does not accept anybody else's sign-off for radio stuff, so it hasn't accepted.
They could teach the CAA a thing or two, eh?
Yeah. So I want some Raspberry Pi 400s for school. We can't get them because they've not been signed off. So it'll probably take 2 years to get the flipping things signed off here. But there we go.
You're about to lose signal, mate.
Look, you're losing signal.
I am, aren't I? I am. Oh, Lordy. Come on, this one. What's this one going to do? But now your dish would have to swing around, wouldn't it? It would have had to swing, unless, I don't know. Oh, look, that bit of Swaziland's getting some love now. No, I've not been watching this.
Elon's watching the stream and he thought, we better fix that straight away.
Yeah.
He's that kind of guy. Isn't he?
I know he is that guy, and he does watch every week. I know very well. Yeah, he plainly does. Right, we are definitely talking nonsense. We have been all the whole time. Yeah, true.
There's no deterioration in the quality. It's always this bad.
True, the quality is always bad. Yes, that's true. So, any more drone news before we depart? Does anyone?
Yes. In America, the AMA the FAA has announced that they're doing this test thing that everyone has to sort of test. And they've announced the whatever. The interesting thing is this test applies to people of all ages flying all weights of craft. So 4-year-old kid wants to fly a little toy drone, has to pass the test. Seriously, what's wrong with these cretins? Airliners falling from the sky and speeders smacking into the backyards of houses and we've got to test these 4-year-olds in case they pose a danger to the population. Oh.
Yeah. It's I think I naively thought about 18 months ago, I thought, all the fuss will die down about all this. And I think I was being very naive. It's the same counter-US companies making the noise. The same UTM companies are making the noise to try and sell their products. Although a lot of them several of them are beginning to fail now. So that's a positive thing. They'll be out of the frame. But yeah, I'm not sure what's going to make this go away, but our industry is the revenue stream for conventional regulators. There's a big revenue stream, sadly. Rant ends. Oh, you're not talking, Ian?
It's funny to see where we end up next. We've got this DJI launch around the corner. That's all we have. If we look at the drone industry, for the most part, there's still talk of Skydio entering the UK and Europe mid this year, but who knows? There's been no real noise about that at all. DJI are putting all of their eggs behind this drone. It's leaked more than a pipe that's been cut with a set of bolt croppers and then had a giant pipe forced up it to make sure the bore is big enough.
Launch, Ian? What's the launch date?
The rumors, I think, are the 2nd of March, off the top of my head.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's the last rumors I heard off the top of my head. I can't remember. I do know the date. I honestly can't remember. Hand on heart, I've forgotten now because everything I knew has been leaked. So there's nothing now that is, I can say whatever I want now because really that NDA doesn't stand anymore because someone's spread it all out there. So everything I knew is out there now. All we can do is wait and see.
It's going to be interesting to see how well it sells in the UK and how many.
It's going to sell like hell, but it's going to be a car crash. But it's going to sell like hell. It really is.
I actually want one. This is the sad bit. Even I don't normally touch new DJI products. As soon as they come out, I've got the Phantom 4 Pro. That does everything I need typically. I have a Mini just because it unlocks for work a few things. But actually, I quite fancy racing one.
I will be ordering it because I've got the credit there to do it, and that's from years. I haven't bought a DJI product. They haven't released one in 2 years that I've been interested in. The last DJI product I bought was the Mavic 2 Pro. After that, I did buy the RoboMaster for the kids, but that was a present. But since
are you going to mortgage your house and buy another battery?
Probably, and I still think they're going to be $80 to $100. People are saying less. I do not see them coming in.
I saw a price of €125 on one video.
That would make sense. $100, $99, €125. That's about right. Probably £125, €125 euros, about $99, maybe $105. It will sell well. It will be a decent product, but the big problems with this one is the new world it opens up for them. I honestly don't think they're ready for. From a support point of view, they're not ready for it. I know that for a fact. For people screwing these into the ground, even when it is their own fault, the support kickback could be enormous.
So you know what I'd be doing now if I wanted to make a lot of money? I'd be making an alternative frame you could drop your FPV DJI drone parts into after you crashed the snot out of it and it was all broken into pieces. I reckon there'd be a huge market for that.
That's a brilliant idea. You should get on that and patent that quickly.
And here's one big problem. DJI are terrible at making spares available. They are notoriously bad. The last product they actually made spares readily available for was the Phantom 3 Pro. And you could buy the frame for it, mostly because the damn thing would crack by itself. But you could buy the frame. They have not made spares available for any of their products after that at all. Mavic, you couldn't buy a spare part. Not a single part of the Mavic was available. Now, my understanding is there will be parts of this available, but it's no good them being available for a year or two. That's not enough. People are going to want parts for this for the next 5 to 10 years. You cannot even get air units for the Goggles RE now. So anyone who bought the Goggles RE, it's gone. You're done. If you lose your aircraft in a crash and the reason I know this is I've got a gentleman on my channel who's had this incident. He put an aircraft went in water and destroyed the air unit. He cannot buy another. And the same thing will happen to the current FPV system. I've been warning people about this for some time. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen in a year. DJI don't look back for long. They make fantastic products. They make some of the best products we've had, but they are a company that always marches forward. You cannot buy Inspire 1 batteries today. You cannot easily get Phantom 3 batteries today. You can't get the air units for the FPV version OcuSync. They are not a company that looks at longevity. So this drone will be available for 3 years, but after that, it's like a star. It burns bright and then it burns out.
That was great.
That's my little
so
rant.
Deep. I'm going to get that tattooed on my arm. That's really deep.
It does. It's, you know, I'm a bit freer to say what I think these days on certain things, and that is, you know, anyone who has followed them for as long as I have, that is facts. You know, it's not lies, it's not made up. The fact is they are very good at making fantastic products, but they don't make parts for long, and they don't last forever.
That's good business sense. That's the way to run a company.
You know, and it's funny, the FPV community is struggling with this right now. And I've been, funny enough, I've had RC groups, I've been trying to hammer this into people. You know, they're saying, when's the next update for the current FPV system? And I've been, don't expect it to ever happen. And they're like, well, why? Because they've moved on. This drone is the future. If this drone takes off, standalone FPV probably could even get left behind, because they're a company that goes where the money is. So take Lightbridge 2 and Lightbridge 1, standalone FPV systems, not goggle, but remote control FPV systems. The second they integrated them into their aircraft, the standalone system was binned. Why are we messing with that? Too small a volume. Why do we want that? And we all have said many times on this channel and on our own that FPV market is tiny. This air unit market, this goggles market, as it is today, is a pet project. What it's led to is the development of this drone. That's my phone.
Perfectly
timed. But if this drone takes off and they start selling hundreds of thousands of them a year, and they're selling 2,000 or 3,000, you know, let's say they're selling 10,000 FPV systems, they'll just look at it and go, why are we bothering with that? That's chump change. Get rid of it. So never expect it to last forever. And I'm not saying don't buy the product. It's the best one there is out there right now. But don't buy this on the belief you're going to be able to get all parts for it in 2 or 3 years' time.
But the thing is, who honestly says, I have an FPV drone that I've had for more than a few months? They don't last that long.
No, I think the problem is, Bruce, we've had a system where we've been able to continue. You know, analog has been, it didn't matter what you bought, it all worked. You know, okay, you had race bands and all of that nonsense to contend with, but at the end of the day, you could, you know, you would go through 5 sets of drones, but your goggles would still work because we were all on 5.8. We're heading into a future of proprietary digital systems that may have a much shorter shelf life, and your compatibility will be massively reduced as well. You know, and you were the man who said it, Bruce. Long live analog, and it will continue to live for long before. There will be a day where the version 2 of the FPV system, because it's not system, it's goggles version 2. The version 2 of the FPV system will come, and then suddenly air units will, you know, they'll make a batch, and then they will stop making a batch, and that's how they work. I
wonder if I can. Somebody has, how shall I word this? And I've just received a message about it, has identified that there is a problem with the Phantom 4 Pros. And they've had 6 in total from 2 different batches, and they all have issues. Now, Ian, have you heard anything about these issues?
Nothing officially. Now, the only issue I know of the Phantom 4 Pro is I've seen a number of people who have the battery connectors melt out, and this has been ongoing since day one. It's low numbers, but it seems it's a horrible connection design they used on it. And what happens is a couple of the pins on the battery melt out. Most likely the battery wasn't pushed in far enough, and it starts arcing. I haven't heard anything else. I'm not aware. You know, it's not beyond the realms of possibility, individual batch issues, though. What have they said what the issue is, Gary?
I'm just going back. Faulty camera hardware. We have three somethings from our latest batch. 95% sure of faulty camera hardware. Purchased 4. The first one fell out of the sky, second flying day, and the other 3 all have a camera issue. But I feel like I just dialed in last week. So he's just got another 3. It's Phantom 4 Pros. He's got another 3, and it's camera issues.
Now, there is something in that in the sense of, and as Mark says, the Phantom 4 Pro went out of production for some time. The reason it went out of production was because DJI weren't able to get elements of the camera system, specifically the global shutter lens, because the company who made it, I believe, went under. And I don't know how true this was, but it was said by a dealer that DJI ended up buying the tooling to do it themselves for another one of their manufacturing partners, and that partner then started making them again. But they've had to do all of that from scratch. So there could be teething issues. It only came back. When did it come back? About early last year?
So what teething issues are we suggesting this might be then?
Could just be around the production of that camera hardware. It's hard to know. If it could just be a batch issue that DJI are facing. It happens with suppliers. Suppliers supply them bad parts. There's no known major issues with that model. The only two major issues I've seen is the camera would not point straight sometimes, and if you gave it a good twist with your hand, it would straighten back up, and that's because of the strange rubber boot design they have in there to hold the camera. So if it wasn't straight, Mark, when it was looking, and if you feel it, if you wobble it to the side, it's on like a suspended mechanism inside, and what would happen is the rubber was a bit too stiff, and it would stop the gimbal straightening up. And then the battery connector. But often you'd only know about the battery connector issue when it was laying on the ground after it had fallen out of the sky.
I'm just asking him if he'd like to join us and tell us exactly what his issue is. And just in case you're listening out, I'm going to put a link into the channel on which we are having this chat, if you dare.
Anything's beyond the realms of possibility. They may have a batch issue. They may have had a few hundred go out. It's like anything. These products go into production, they go out of production, they go back in. They don't make them continuously. They'll in for, say, 5,000 units and then stop it again. And that's why you see the problems with the parts ebbing and flowing. You see batteries being available and then suddenly none for 3 months, and then they'll come back in. It's very common in older products.
Okay. I'm just gonna warn him. Fair warning, you'll be live. We are live. He might be coming, so we can have somebody come and tell us his story.
Yeah, see what's happened. It'd be interesting. It could just be a simple. The problem is, it depends if he's getting them from the same supplier. It could even be same batch heading out the same country, and once they end up on the. They come off the line, they all go on a pallet. If you buy one from a retailer, there's a chance if any of the pallet have all got the same problem, you could easily end up with the same ones from that pallet, couldn't you?
Yeah. And I must admit, I had a Phantom 4 Pro, an early one, fail on me, and it fell out of the sky. I was doing a property shoot, and I was doing a 360 around the building, and it just went, good night, and just fell to the floor in front of a client. Couldn't you imagine?
So there we go. Here's Derek joining us of Brave. Let's just test the audio. Are you there over, Derek? Good job. I asked to test. Not hearing you.
It's working well.
Yeah, well, there we are. Well, we know who's got the problem now.
You sure you haven't got Marcel on?
It could be Marcel. Yes, I'll bring you to this problem via the miracle of mime. Maybe try again. Try your audio settings, Derek, and we'll I've brought him in.
Hello.
Oh, there we are. Yeah, you're there. Hello, Derek. How are you?
Figured it out. Pretty good. How you doing?
We're very good. I saw your message now as we are live streaming, and so I thought I'd mention it, and I've mentioned it, and well, tell us what your problems are.
So yeah, well, I'll start off by saying that the snarky tone is mainly aimed at DJI because I've been tired of dealing with troubleshooting this stuff. But this has been infuriating for a couple months. And I guess mainly I wanted to get the word out and see how many other people are experiencing the same issue, because it has very, very specific way to replicate the issue is kind of a red flag of what's going on. But kind of a long story short, we fly Phantom 4 Pro drones. We have 18 total, counting the most 3 recent replacements that are experiencing the same thing. And what kind of clued me into this problem is we were mapping a site in a heavily forested area. A lot of the pictures looked out of focus, started looking at, pixel blur, basically going back and forth with the pilot over the course of the next couple flights, trying to figure out where the image quality issue is coming from. Couldn't figure it out after a few. We tried a lot of stuff, including just, do it in DJI Go only, no third-party apps, hover at a certain location with no movement, take pictures, tried in autofocus, manual focus at infinity, all that kind of stuff. Couldn't figure it out, so I had him send me that one back, and I sent him a replacement one. His very first flight, same problem. And I guess I should start out by saying these drones came from a batch of 4 that we bought at the same time, right after production on the Phantom 4 Pro started back up again, if you guys remember that. So as soon as I saw those were available again, I got approval from my boss to order 4 more, and we ordered them the next day from our distributor. So I think that's kind of an important time in terms of when we got it. So the very first one that we flew fell out of the sky on the second day. Only time we've ever had that happen. Went through a troubleshooting process. The pilot that was flying is by far the best one in terms of doing his pre-flight inspections and everything. So my best guess on that one was either a motor fail or a prop fell off, either because he didn't mount it correctly or, something on the motor actually broke, which we never got a determination on. Now we've gone through the other 3 in that batch, and they all had this camera issue that we're experiencing. And the way it looks is it looks out of focus, really, which is a hard one to try and convince people of because that's very subjective. But I've seen a lot of imagery from this specific drone. I feel like that jumped out at me, and it is obvious in some other areas. But that's the problem: is they look out of focus, or it looks like there's pixel blur. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, so how many aircraft in total do you have with this problem then?
The 3 that we identified it on, I shipped back to our distributor, which I believe ended up being a mistake. We got 3 replacements from them. I just got those 2 weeks ago. We had some bad weather, so I just went out for a test flight today. Exact same problem. There's something else going on in one of them in terms of the gimbal, which I haven't seen before, but I don't know if that's related. But it's image quality. I realize it may be hard for people to compare like a subjective impression of the image quality if you don't have a drone that's 2 years older like we do, and we can compare them, or one that's 8 months older. But that's the most obvious clue. If you put that thing at 200 feet, manual focus at infinity, and take a picture, does that look better or worse than autofocus? That's typically an easy way to get people to make a comparison. My feeling is if you just put it in manual focus and focus at infinity, it should be pretty obvious there's something going on there. And it's pretty dramatically out of focus. So that's the hard part to convince people of, is just make an assessment of the image quality. The way that you can see if your drone is experiencing the same issues ours are would be to open DJI Go, focus at infinity. You can do this in the office on the ground. You don't have to be flying. So open DJI Go, switch it to manual focus, tap the infinity icon. That'll give you the first little clue. If it snaps down to the spot and stays there, it's probably good. If it looks like it jumps back and forth, it's probably one of the bad ones. But if you have it at infinity and force close DJI Go and open it back up again, what position is the focus slider in? If it's in the same spot as you left it, at least in our 18 drones, if it's in the same spot as you left it, that drone's good. If it's not, that drone's bad. And I've had 2 other surveyors check their drones for me also. Actually multiple, but 2 others reported the exact same behavior. They were a little iffy on whether the image quality was different, but these guys also haven't seen as many, images as I have. I think we've got 360 mapping flights now over the last 4 years. So they were a little iffy on that, but the behavior of that thing resetting the focus when force closing and opening it back up, that was present on their drones. Both of them said that they bought it after production started back up again. Both of them bought it from a distributor, a survey distributor, so I don't actually know the manufacturer date, but they did purchase it after that process.
So it sounds like it's the newer I don't know if you heard me talking earlier. Now the reason it went out of production, and it's the same reason you couldn't buy the X4S as well, was because there was a camera components, which I believe is the lens specifically. Okay, the autofocusing, it's a lens sensor assembly, but it has got a global shutter because it's the only product that does have a mechanical shutter, which is why you guys buy it. That's why everyone wants it for mapping. And the information I was given was there was an issue with the company who made that for them, because DJI wasn't making that component, just like many manufacturers. They sourced them, and that put them out of production for quite some time. When that happened, stock was then put to one side to continue production of the RTK model, because its irony is they ran out of stock just as they'd launched the RTK version of the same drone, and then obviously they managed to get production back up and running with those components. So it sounds like whatever they're doing on the lenses on the new one is not behaving the same as it was on the original one, whether it's it sounds more like alignment. Sensor alignment is what it's
I think it's worth mentioning too that it's not, I didn't buy these from DJI 2 months ago. So whatever the newer Phantoms are, they very well could be just as good as the ones that we got previously. I have no idea. I just know we got them from a distributor that bought a lot right after production started back up, and it's been an absolute nightmare trying to get this stuff replaced, and really to get anybody else to see the problem, because that behavior I told you about, force closing and opening the app, I mean, that takes 4 minutes to try in the office, and just trying to get anybody to try that and see the issue is just, it's ridiculous, trying to get other people to see it so I can get an idea on how many people are experiencing this.
It really reminds me of the launch of the Mavic Pro. Now, for the people who were around in the early days, the Mavic Pro had DJI's one of their first autofocus lenses, and loads of the Mavic Pro cameras had focus issues. Loads and loads of them, very similar issues. You just couldn't get it right. It was either soft on the edges or soft in the middle, and it was always off. No matter what you did, it was off. And they had a lot of problems with the Mavic Pro, especially straight after production started when the product just released. And it does make sense if you've got a distributor who's picked up, 400 or 500 units that have just dropped off the shelf on day one of it starting again. It could be something they had issues with. For you, the frustration is if you're having to deal with a distributor, you're just getting another one out of that same batch. That's the problem you're facing. What you need is have you had any? Your problem is you won't really. Well, they'll all have to be new now. Getting one of the original production will be close to impossible, other than it being a single box on a dealer's shelf somewhere for the last 2 years. Have you had any of the new ones that are fine? Have you had any new ones where you've not got a problem?
I haven't tried any newer ones. I've been asking everybody I know in the industry if anybody's gotten one recently. I haven't run into somebody yet that has. But I mean, I was, basically when I sent Gary that smartass message was because I just got off the phone and chat with DJI support and trying to tell them, I've described this issue, gone through hours of troubleshooting, taken a lot of really thorough videos. The last time I submitted a case number, I just take all of that, apply it to these 3 new drones. They're telling me that it's already out of warranty, and I'm basically digging my heels in on this one and saying I'm absolutely positive this is a manufacturer defect. You guys can fix it, or we're jumping ship.
Unfortunately, you're going to be coming up against. You're probably dealing with. You might be dealing with. If you're dealing with DJI support online, you'll actually be dealing with probably Thailand off the top of my head, trying to get any sense. This is the big problem when they lost a couple of people in the US. There were people you could go and talk to on the groups and get some answers. The problem is now they're going to treat you like the guy who's walked off the street and picked up a Phantom to go and take some pictures of his kids, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's, and honestly, nothing's easing my anger over it other than describing this to somebody and having them understand it, because I was already exhausted talking to him today just because I've described this so many different times. You guys should have a record of it. Copy that, send it to the person that's going to understand what I'm describing, and then replace the drones for me. So it's just an exhausting process to go through. That's basically why I was trying to get a hold of Gary was, hey, you don't have to stand behind what I'm saying. Just say that you received a report of this, and then ask if anybody else is experiencing it. If you go through this specific process, is your drone doing the same thing? And then yes or no, and when did you purchase it?
Well, Mark, I don't know. Mark's he's now.
Is yours a V1, Mark, or a version 2?
Yeah, well, he was testing his one as we spoke, but now he's disappeared. He's obviously discovered.
Crying in the corner.
He's crying. He's straight on. He's straight on the phone to DJI. So, what did you discover from yours, Mark?
Mine's a V1.
Okay.
Right then. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, these are all V2s. I mean, the last comparison I sent them was against a V1 because I left the last functioning V2 with the pilot that was having an issue, although I did do that comparison too. The distributor actually did some troubleshooting, something I forgot to mention. He noticed that the behavior seemed to change if you had auto ISO on or off, which I know sounds weird, but that was true on one of the drones for us. If auto ISO was turned off, the focus would stay as you left it. The other two, it didn't matter either way. And I guess it's worth mentioning, we've rolled back firmware, and tried it there. I mean, I can just about promise you everything you guys could think of. We tried that before even contacting DJI support or the distributor.
And the distributor is being quite cool about it, or are they digging their heels in now as well?
I think, they sent me back some pictures saying, basically, I think I figured it out. They did discover that issue with the auto ISO, so kudos to them for that. But the image quality that they sent back was, it was laughable. I get it if, they're not that far off, and maybe this specific drone, you're not used to seeing a lot of images from it. But this one, I asked a lot of people at work that don't even look at our drone imagery, and it's crystal clear obvious to them there's something wrong with that imagery. So they sent it back saying, if we're good, I'll send the drones back. And I said, no, we're not good. That still looks horrible. Send them back and I'll deal with DJI.
The distributor is in a difficult position. It's different in the UK, I think, to the US laws as well. The distributor will be in a no-win here because unless DJI acknowledge the issue, the distributor's screwed, frankly, because they won't take back or give him credit for anything he replaces unless they acknowledge it. And if they were refusing to acknowledge the issue, he's left dealing with you. And, in the UK, we have very specific laws, which is it's on the retailer's head. Regardless of what the manufacturer says, if I can prove it's faulty, it's down to the retailer to take the hit on that. And it's for him to go argue with the manufacturer later. Whereas I think in America, it's very different, isn't it? It's a slightly different scenario on kickback and things like that. It's a difficult situation. I've seen it many times, unfortunately. All I can say is keep shouting at them. I can't promise you'll get anywhere, but all you can do is keep trying to put some pressure on.
Yeah, looking at the time I've put into this so far, if I apply my billable rate to this, could have bought 6 more of a different drone. So this is kind of why I'm at the point where they can take them back and repair them, or I'm going to stop messing with it and we'll switch over to Skydio.
And that's where it's taken you ahead. That's a key thing for them to hear, isn't it? Oh, we'll make sure that they hear this little snip of this conversation.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be malicious, but that is why I reached out to you, is seeing how widespread the problem is, because I've told everybody I'm friends with in the industry just as kind of a heads up, like, hey, be aware. We do precision mapping for survey. I work for surveyors and engineers, so this kind of stuff is important, and it's easy to miss it. So that was the start. And then I just wanted to find out how many other people are having an issue, talking to you really to try and shine some light on it and hopefully get less resistance from DJI in terms of fixing the problem.
Be interesting to know how many of how many that your distributors sold of that batch and how many of that batch are hanging around out in the wild.
Well, one of the guys that had one replaced, he told me one of their other survey offices just ordered one from the same distributor, and I'm sure it came off the same shelf. He told me that 45 minutes ago.
The thing is, it's not a high volume product anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
So even finding people who are buying them these days is only people like Derek and them. General users aren't buying Phantoms anymore, so the volumes are going to be fairly low. Retailers are probably ordering in 100 at a time. He could have that much for a year on the shelf. That's the problem.
Yeah, so you don't quite know what you're getting, do you? If you buy one today, what a conundrum. Well, Derek, we will definitely make sure this gets in front of him. I'm sorry you're having a dreadful time with that, and thank you very much for diving in. That's quite cool. I saw it on LinkedIn. And
Derek, can you do me a favor? If you've got Gary's email address, can you email him, or I'll send you, or email me, or I'll email you? Can you just send me a comparison pic, one of each, so I can have a look myself? I'd be interested to see it.
I've actually, I'll put myself on mute for a second, forward it over to Gary. I've got it in a Google Drive. The one I'm going to send you is a V1 against a V2, cool. But the day before I did it, V2 against V2, same result.
Yeah, the camera hasn't, technically it hasn't changed. Do you know what I mean? You know, right. There is no technical differences. Whilst DJI might have made component changes, there's no spec change between the products. So from a camera.
Got it. Yeah, I'll send that over to you guys. Let me know if you want me to hop off this too. And
no. We've been here 2 hours. We're going.
Yeah,
anyway.
I got to go anyway.
We've been talking rubbish, and I just happened to see see your message, so I thought I'd see if we could get you here. And Ian has been helping DJI with all sorts of online support for years. So if anyone knows,
unfortunately, I don't even know any. This is the very realistic, sad fact. I don't even know anyone I can point him at now. They're not there.
Yeah.
That's the truth of the situation.
Back in the old days, they're not there anymore. It's going to be a problem, isn't it? But it's interesting that you would consider Skydio straight out of the box. Is there any other manufacturer you'd be thinking about, Derek, or is it just?
Yeah, I mean, there's honestly a lot of great drones out there. I love SenseFly drones. I don't see myself ever going back to fixed wing. There's just too many limitations in terms of the wind actually affecting image quality, whereas with the multi-rotors, wind really just affects battery life. You're still getting quality images. We can't do 100-foot flight flying real slow or stopping to completely eliminate pixel blur. The EB is the best fixed wing I've ever flown. I think it's great. It's just hard to get past the multi-rotor aspect, and especially for what I do with most of it being transportation, in support of transportation engineering. Trying to get quality road surfaces is really important, and it's tough to get that with the tiniest little bit of pixel blur. So, I like Skydio. I've talked to people over there. I liked it. They understand people in the precision mapping community are trying to switch from DJI. So I think they're going to be moving in that direction. I think, the rolling shutter effect, we can address a lot of that with stop and shoot. I would still rather not go that route. But really what we're limited to is the way we have our program set up. We have geologists, wetland scientists, survey party chiefs, people like that are licensed to fly, and their responsibility is safety. That's 95% of it. Don't worry about data collection, the quality of the data. We don't want them thinking about anything else but flying safely. So we program the flights here in a central location, do an initial site check, essentially set everything up for them. They go out, run autonomous flights, send all the data back. If we switch up to something that is more expensive or more complicated to operate, whatever it is, we're not going to get by with doing internal training with people that are flying maybe twice a week, maybe once every 2 months in some cases. If we need to go that route, we're going to pull back from the way the program's set up now and switch over to kind of a tiger team and have 2 or 3 of us across the company that are flying full time, instead of just, we already have a survey crew chief out there and he's licensed to fly. He can do the flight while he's out there.
Yeah, there's a really valid point about changing brand, isn't it? That you have got to change how you do everything.
Yeah.
And so it would be beholden on brands to make sure they keep their workflow pretty similar with any new products they bring out and all that sort of a thing. It's an interesting problem to have. It's a problem that nobody would have had 10 years ago because the gear wasn't there. So I don't mean to make light of it, but it's an interesting and it's a sign that the industry is growing up a little bit, that you've got that problem. It's cool in some ways. Sorry, I don't mean to...
No, I was building my own with Pixhawk and APM and all that stuff. I was a firefighter and started building drones for firefighting, and the ball just kept rolling downhill and ended up here. So I was around for that too. I tell people a lot, hey, people that like to start tinkering and playing with stuff, like, oh, maybe we could put these cameras on, and I tell them all the time, it's, we want something off the shelf. We're at that point. We don't want to be tinkering with stuff and fiddling. If something goes wrong with one, we want a new one in service the next day.
Yeah.
So we need to find a way for this system to work. And really, the hard part to explain to people is the power of what we do. A lot of it comes down to the apps we have available using DJI Ground Station Pro or Litchi, all these different apps. The cool stuff we do is really creative use of those. So if we're limited to something like SenseFly eMotion, as great as it is, it's not flexible in the way we need it. We use the drones for a lot of different things.
Very valid points. Well, if anyone, dear viewer, be you on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, and you happen to have a version 2 Phantom 4 Pro, perhaps you could run that test again, or wind back and hear about that test, and let us know. Let us know what you find. That's very interesting. And as such, I think it's probably a good time to call it a day on this one. Does anyone else have anything else before we go? Going once, going twice. Dear viewer, my words ran out. Wherever you might be in the world, be safe, wear a mask, wash your hands, stay away from people. I'll send news out again about lunchtime every day for the rest of the week. Look after yourself. See you next week, chaps. Take care. Bye-bye for now.